Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you our next installment of the forms of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong selections of Let's Plays, because do you guys even remember back in 2021, that recently we've already managed to done a redo Let's Play of Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance, and that was actually a pretty fun time, back in forms of in 2021 anyway. So here we are now in 2023, and now we're going to be tackling through the sequel to Mario vs. Donkey Kong, known as Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. Now, unlike the first game that is only on the Game Boy Advance, in this game this time around though, it's exclusive on the Nintendo DS. Meaning about the fact that we have to utilize the touchscreen a lot, which you'll see why as soon as we're able to get the game started. So as you can tell from the actual capture footage of the game, obviously the actual method I'm recording this is on the Wii U Virtual Console re-release version of the game, which sadly you can no longer get this game now on the Wii U eShop download version, aside from you only got one option by doing all the capture recording for this is either you get the 3DS capture device, or if you managed able to be riskiness and by going for the emulator. So either way though, yeah, I'm really looking forward to able to doing this game for you guys, especially concerning about the fact that it's been a very long time since I actually have last played Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis, because I sort of able to actually got myself my physical copy of the game back in 2007, because obviously this game first came out in 2006 in Japan, and I believe a year later in 2007. So either way though, if you couldn't tell from the actual copyright thing down there on the bottom screen. So speaking of the bottom screen though, is that you see there's a main game, construction zone, as well as options, but we'll show these other two modes in a later time. So the main focus of the game is obviously going to take place in the main game. So without further ado, let's get started with Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 for the Nintendo DS. But first, we got an intro cutscene.
The folks at Mini Mario Toy Company have announced the grand opening of Super Mini Mario World, a theme park based on their runaway hit toys, Mini Donkey Kong, Mini Toad, and Mini Peach. And here comes the brains behind it all, Mario, with his VIP guest Pauline for the ribbon-cutting ceremony.
So it looks like that Pauline, she's been kidnapped by Donkey Kong ever since in the arcade game. But except this time around though about the fact that we'll explain more details about the forms of the entire gameplay of this. So as you can tell, we ended up in the forms of oh, and by the way, keep this in mind, this is the European version of the game, because as you can tell, the biggest differences between the forms of NTNC version, specifically in the forms of the American release, as well as the Japanese release of the game. Basically, it did say floor 1, whilst in the UK version, or the European version I should say, it did say ground floor. So meaning about the fact that it's one of those regional differences as far as I'm aware. So as you can tell, the first world we're going to be entering into is Mushroom Mayhem, which is a very simple standard grassland environment as far as I'm aware. So either way though, because as you can tell, that you're still able to actually go from stage to stage, but except that the main gimmick of this game is that this game heavily utilizes the touchscreen controls, as you can see, and basically though is about the fact that your objective here is about the fact that we need to guide Mini Marios, not Mario this time, because, you know, as you can tell, we need to take control of the forms of those Mini Marios, and it's your objective to able to actually just to maneuver them around throughout the course of the stage, and it's your job to able to actually lead them to the goal, and that's basically all there is to say, because, you know, think of like the forms of the game called Lemmings, that it's kind of like the same thing, except you're obviously going to be able to take control with the touchscreen and stuff like that. Although, as you can tell, it's about the fact that in this particular game right here, that you can able to actually stop the Mini Marios from continuously moving. Now, I think this is the only installment to the series where it comes to those Mini Mario games, as far as I'm aware. Basically, though, it's about the fact that you can able to actually let them stop. Whilst unlike the future games in the series, specifically, Minis march again on a DSiWare, alongside with the forms of Miniland Mayhem, and especially noticeable with the forms of Tipping Stars, and heck, even especially noticeable with an Amiibo challenge as well, that basically though is about the fact that you can't obviously stop them, because they're all autopilots the whole way through. So either way though, because as you can tell, that, again, it's been a very long time since I actually have last played this game, you know. So, either way, let's get started with the first level in Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, which appears to be Room G1. Or, for those of you who lived in America or Japan, it will be Floor 1-1. So, yeah, as you can see about the fact that in order to able to actually see what's up ahead, you simply have to able to use the D-pad or the control stick if you manage to play on the Wii U Virtual Console version. So either way though, and as you can see, since we did somehow manage to able to activate something, specifically certain stage elements, like we actually introduce into ourselves into those pink blocks, and basically you can able to actually create them as not only for its safety wall, or potentially a platform if you're trying to go across those hazards. Now, the obviously main collectible, as you can tell, is about the fact that not only do we get ourselves our first card, which actually represents M, but also we get ourselves a first gold star. Now, in order to able to get every single gold stars in the game, basically, as you can tell, we need to beat a certain high score, similar to the forms of how it does on the first game. However, unlike the first game, there's only like one rating system, whilst in here though, there are 3 different rating systems. So as you can tell, we already got ourselves the first gold medal in the entire game so far, and then there's also the forms of the silver star and the bronze star. So meaning about the fact that for this entire playthrough, I will try my best able to actually go after every single gold stars in the game, just to ensure that there are certain things I can possibly try to unlock in the process. So, now as you can tell, we ended up in the forms of in the next stage, as you can tell, and basically as you can tell, since that we've already got all of those Mini Marios in the actual door, so thankfully, unlike the forms of how it does it on the future installments in the series, that basically it actually introduces to ourselves the time limit if you manage to let one of those Mini Marios entering in that particular elevator door. So, either way though, that might be saying something, and I think I should probably save that conversation once we're able to continue proceeding for this game. So either way, and as you can tell, we actually stumbled across into ourselves Gold Mini Mario, which, the reason being for this is because, well, relatively speaking, the reason why I managed able to save him for last, while he's assuming he was activated, basically, if you manage able to do a chain reaction, as you can tell, if you save Gold Mario for last, you can actually get the insane amount of points. So as a result, we instantly got a bronze to begin with for that particular transition, and then after that it will be silver, and then eventually we get ourselves gold. Because there's another thing you need to keep this in mind. As you can tell, we stumbled across into non-stop bonus. So basically, if you have non-stop bonus, you're able to get even insane amount of points. So that'll be the ultimate challenge when it comes to forms of trying to obtain those golden stars in mind. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, that's what I can say about it. And now we can able to introduce into ourselves those different kinds of springs. Now, we've already come across into ourselves the yellow springs from the likes of the forms of the previous stage as we've already done. And on top of that, there's going to be a blue one later on. And as you saw already, that we obviously got ourselves the golden Mini Mario. So that way, if you save him for last, then you get more points, as you can tell. And now we come across into ourselves the conveyor belts, which I believe something tells me once we get to the 4th stage in the game, then we have to utilize the conveyor belts by, you know, changing the actual switches and stuff like that, which obviously can either take you to left or right. It seems kind of weird though, it's about the fact that, although I'll explain more details on that in a moment, so either way, a few things I want to explain for this point today actually, is that today's day is of course the 29th of April today, in this case in 2023 today. Only 2 more days to go until we move on to May. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, yeah, still pretty pumped about the forms of how May is going to react to it. Oh, and by the way, about the fact that we also come across into the actual lift, so, or an elevator, depending on what that particular preference you might want to call it. So, either way though, oh, by the way, out of all the actual Mario vs. Donkey Kong games that utilizes Mini Mario controlling and stuff like that, in regards to the forms of the actual re-releases when it comes to those games in mind, I think this is the only installment in the series they managed able to solve the re-release on the Virtual Console lineup, which I almost first thought they're also going to bring us into Miniland Mayhem, but unfortunately it doesn't. So either way though, I honestly have no idea why they managed able to come for that decision. So either way though, despite about the fact that relatively speaking, such an Nintendo DS games released in 2010 managed to able to get ourselves this re-release on the Wii U Virtual Console back then. Like, I know for a fact that for one thing in mind, oh jeez, that was close. Yeah, keep that in mind, much like the forms of in the first game, you don't want to let those Mini Marios get full damage. Or should I say, if they come across into a full damage, well, they somehow die, so... However, I will admit though right away, one thing I do appreciate about this game though, is that every time when your Mini Marios have died, basically you don't get an instant game over, unlike the future installments of the series. Specifically, Minis march again, alongside with the, you know, other games in the series. So anyway, so now let's go ahead and move on to the 5th room, and this will actually introduce into ourselves those familiar enemies. So as a result, we come across into those Shy Guys. And also we've managed able to pick up the familiar pickup right there, ever since in the first game, which appears to be the hammers. Or to be more specifically this time around in this game, is that we come across into double hammers, which, because it's pretty obvious of why they managed able to bring 2 hammers with us, just because of Mini Mario can able to actually utilize both hands, to able to actually utilize the double hammers. So, and as you can tell about the fact that every time whenever you do manage to able to collect the specific card, as you can tell, something will happen if you do manage to able to obtain all 9 of those cards per world. So as a result though, I'll save that until whenever we get to it. So... Oh, and on top of all that stuff though, unlike the follow-up, which appears to be on the DSiWare, called Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again, that basically in that game, it plays kind of similar to this, except that you do have a live system during the forms of in the DSiWare game. So, yeah, that's what I can say about it. So anyways, let's move on to the next room. So, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to able to guide Mini Mario to the right, and if I accidentally manage able to tap the Mini Marios, they'll just go completely stop, and then as a result, I pretty much lost my bonus by simply getting myself non-stop bonus. So, yeah, that's the ultimate challenge when it comes to the forms of this particular game sometimes, is that you really definitely need to able to aim for non-stop bonus, assuming if you want to go after every single thing throughout the game. So, either way, that pretty much does it for this level here. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Did you guys ever remember playing Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 back in the day on a Nintendo DS? Because strangely enough though, whenever I managed able to finally got myself the game, better late than never I suppose, well, despite the fact that, as I mentioned this before, this game came out in 2007 from English versions. And, basically what happens was, though, is about the fact that I was so desperately able to get this game back in the day in 2007. Like, the first time I actually encountered it was actually back in the forms of it, as I said before, in the mid-2007 or something like that. And then basically, when I went to a shop called Morrison's during that time, I was so desperately to get the game. But then I realized about the fact that, well, I just didn't get enough cash for it. And it wasn't until when I managed to realize that I think I've managed able to got it from game out of nowhere, from the sake of delivery service or something. And then as soon as I finally got the game, I realized about something. As soon as I able to actually boot up the game, back in the forms of it back in the day, I did come across into a used copy of the game, meaning about the fact that I did somehow almost beat in the game. So, yeah, that seems kind of odd, especially concerning about the fact that I did not realize about the fact that I was expecting to get the game started, but then I realized that everything else is almost fully completed during that time. So, yeah, that's kind of strange. So, anyways, now let's move on to the next room, which appears to be room 8. So, kind of think about it, unlike the future installments of the series, specifically, you know, Mini's March Again, Miniland, Mayhem, and even especially noticeable with Tipping Stars as well, that each and every single world does manage to contain 8 levels, whilst in this particular game does feature 9 levels. So, that seems quite a lot, especially concerning about the fact that, well, obviously this is a Nintendo DS game, so you expect you're able to play the game on the go, but keep it in mind though, everything else is all touchscreen controls. Well, apart from the fact that you can able to use the directional pad to able to look around the stage and stuff, so... Anyway, so that's that, so now let's move on to Room 9, before we get on to the forms of the usual bit, ever since you enjoy new forms of it not only on Donkey Kong 94, but also with the forms of the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong. So, as a result, once you complete all of the main regular levels throughout each world, you do realize you come across into a boss fight every once in a while, which, seems very obviously, will be Donkey Kong himself. Although, relatively speaking though, about the fact that, well, I'll get into more details about that, assuming of course if we somehow complete this stage first. So, either way though, that might be some conception. So, it's a good thing I did somehow manage to get the game on the Wii U download version of the game, just in case if I don't have any issues with the forms of not able to run on the emulator, because otherwise, if it runs on the emulator, it will be lag like crazy. So, assuming of course if I was trying to able to do Miniland Mayhem or something like that, but I'm not entirely sure. So either way, now as you can tell, we've got all of these cards representing Mini Mario right here, and something will happen if you do manage to collect all 9 cards, where basically you can able to activate as soon as we're able to tap the touchscreen, basically we get ourselves a mini game. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, yeah, we'll save Donkey Kong stage for later, so let's see what this mini stage is all about. And something tells me we do need to destroy a certain amount of those Shy Guys. So, yeah, basically all you have to do in these kinds of challenges like this is that you have to able to smash as many of those mini Shy Guys as much as you can. So I believe you do need to aim for about 25. So even though I couldn't pay attention to the actual top screen as much, just because I'm more focusing on the bottom screen. So as a result, the first one is pretty simple though, because you can able to just keep on tapping and tapping and tapping, and that's all there is to it. 54 points. Nice. And by the way, something's worth mentioning for is that much like the forms of our Let's Play of WarioWare Touched, basically the entire layout of this recording session is always going to be like this. So, anyway, so let's go ahead and get started with the first boss in Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, and that is of course Donkey Kong himself. And basically this time around though, in order to able to deal the damage on Donkey Kong, as you can see, we do need to able to take control of the actual rotating cannon. And basically, if you manage to able to get a good angle shot on it though, basically you would able to deal with him for about 6 hits, because otherwise, if you manage to able to successfully do it, basically you would be able to win basically. So either way though, and keep in mind, since that we did somehow rescue, or should I say, we did somehow reach the goal with every single Mini Marios in each world, or at least one of the worlds anyway, we actually got a maximum of 25 Mini Marios. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, and in order to able to actually get the gold star in at least in every single DK boss fight, basically you have to able to do a no damage run basically, similar to the forms of how it does it in the original game for sure, although the noticeable difference this time is obviously it's on the Nintendo DS. So, and also, a short thing's worth noting for is that if you ever played, you know, Mini's March Again, certain boss fights are very identical. So either way though, that might be saying something. So, at least the first boss is pretty simple and easy. It's just about the fact that you have to dodge a lot of hazards that Donkey Kong has sent us. So either way, since we actually did a no damage run, so that means we get ourselves an instant gold star. So either way, that basically does it for the ground floor, which is of course Mushroom Mayhem. So as a result, yeah, I think we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me tomorrow for more of Let's Play of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. That is about the fact that we'll move on to the next floor, which appears to be floor 1, Tropical Tremoil, or, if for those of you who lived in America and Japan, floor 2. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Later, fellas.